The theme for this month is about really what I thought about this in the overall arc of it. And I was thinking, hey, man, we're getting into, if you're in the Western Hemisphere, we're really getting into the spring and the summer. And this is when we like to do a lot of things. We're out and about doing stuff, but we also have our businesses to run. We have family to, we're doing things, and we're multitasking. And I thought this is the perfect time to start talking about time and about knowing that you got this. And so for me lately this month, I've been talking a lot about bending time. The name of the theme is Time is on Your Side, Late No More Arriving. And you can take that as many ways as you want, because in the spiritual sense, sometimes we feel that we've lost out on this or that. And I wish I would have done that last month or yesterday. I really did this. And we start playing with the timeline and we're wishing, you know what? We start bringing in that feeling of curiosity, that everything is like maybe the right time. Maybe you thought you wanted to do something, a month ago or a year ago or 10 years ago. And my son's girlfriend was saying, I'm so sad because I'm turning 20. And so on her scenario, she was just feeling like, I'm already 20. I wish I would have done this and that. Anybody else ever do that in your life? When I was 23, I had a big meltdown. I was like, I was supposed to be doing, we get hard on ourselves. So we can look at today's show and any of those. And that's why I want you to have this. Because there's going to be things that are coming up and you get to review. And when you're watching us in podcast or being able to interact with us, that you really get to see your breakthroughs. Because have you ever seen a movie that just inspires you so much? Or you go to a concert and the vocals and the music and you're just into it. You're just like, oh my gosh, this is so awesome. It totally changes my world. Now life seems so easy. I feel so free. Oh my gosh, I can't wait till I do this tomorrow. And you make all these big goals and you're like, yeah. And I'm gonna do this, and all of a sudden everything just seems so free and easy. And that's when bending time is really one of those things you really want to play with. And so I'm going to be speaking about that after we get an introduction here for everyone. So bring that love in for yourself and bring it into that nervous system so it's all as one. And that breathing gets to be calmer. Even when you're excited, you can feel that it's still like stable in the hips. But you get excited, but you still feel grounded. And that's what you're going to get from this show today. My friend, welcome in, Janine.
Thank you. So glad to be here. These amazing women, powerful women, just grounded, power, empowered. I love it. I love being in this show.
Yeah, let's bask in the enjoyment of this.
Mhm.
My friend, we were talking about what you wanted to be speaking about. I know there's some things on your mind. There's been some things happening, and some actually this week, really starting to think about like the most recent things that you really want to talk about. Let's introduce that to the community. What's happening that's on your mind these days?
So the biggest thing that's been on my mind, and it's a little bit different than what I mentioned to you the other day, is that what prevents people from knowing that something is going on with them emotionally that they may need to address? And you just mentioned safety. And I really think that plays into a big piece of why people don't always look at themselves in a way where they acknowledge what's really going on with themselves. And, as a therapist, that is critical, right? I have people coming to me all the time. But as a coach, I'm encountering people who don't even know that there's something wrong, who don't even have awareness that something is wrong, but you can see it when you meet them. And that's, I think, the biggest challenge that I have is how do you help them see that something may not be right for them without making them feel poorly, without making them feel like, hey, you got something wrong.
Yeah.
Why aren't you looking at that?
Yeah.
It's a gentle approach, and I definitely think safety is a piece of it. that I have to create a safe atmosphere for people to kind of bring that forward so we can look at it and help them feel better.
Yeah. And this brings up something, Jeanine, what I'm thinking about, because yeah, you spoke about safety.
Mhm.
It's like sometimes you can see people, they really look happy, but it's like a like way up here, and you can't feel that grounding, and you can almost like feel this flutter if you're like real sensitive in that space. You can really start feeling it, and
Mhm.
you go, "Here, wait, there's something going on." But when you are talking to people, they're like, "Oh my gosh, that person's just so happy. There's nothing wrong with that." And then Janine, with your ears and knowing from the therapy world, and also as a coach, because you're transitioning to being a coach too, you're like, oh yeah, there's definitely something going on. You can start hearing the words and phrases that they're using, and or that they're just not breathing in flow, but they're really high, or they're really low, but they're not, like their undercurrent energy
Mhm.
is not there. So that's interesting. That gets them okay. So where do you want to go with this? Because yeah, you need the safety, but there's also where you get to help them see that they're resilient, that they're going to be okay.
Yeah, I think that's a piece of it too. Not in that piece of safety is that I can help them realize that, hey, they've actually been through a lot. They can make it through, whatever I may be seeing. And not that what I'm seeing is the end all be all, but if I have some things that I notice that they could kind of tweak or work on to help them reach that next level for themselves, I
Mm.
definitely want to do that and build on their past resilience because we all don't get here if we're not resilient. But a lot of people don't even know that they have it. So I just find it interesting that there's a lack of awareness a lot of times in our emotional intelligence. We don't even know how to see things in us, or we may see things in others, and it's easier to point that out than look at ourselves. But I definitely think there's a key piece that we need to be looking at ourselves too, which is what I love about this group is that we're all willing to grow and kind of tweak the things that may not be working for us.
Yeah, and that's a key point you said, because I like to partner with that with you. Because the
Mhm.
thing is that when we know, like we just see our journey and we're like, okay, I've cleared a lot of those things, and moving forward I'm still going to have things. So you don't have the judgment on that. You just
Mhm.
go, you just have like this love, like, okay, somebody's having some big issues, but and it's just showing up, like somebody saying, man, there's always bad stuff that happens to me, like it's just me, like that just happens, and then people will start agreeing with them and you're like, no, 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 did you just see somebody smiled at you? Oh, did you just see yesterday, you won
Right.
$20 somewhere, and like they're still talking about all the bad things you go, and so that there's some, I don't know if it would be trauma or some scenarios that they are telling themselves that they can only see the stuff that's not working for them. That's to be a, I know I have a hard time starting in the morning when I'm not feeling real positive and good, and so carrying that throughout the day too must be really a challenge. Unless you don't know there's anything wrong, because I don't know.
I know it's tricky. It's tricky because we don't want to get bogged down in all the icky stuff, just like you said.
Yeah.
But I think sometimes when we don't address what's really happening, like life is going at the speed of light, which seems like it's started to happen again since COVID's kind of lifting and we're getting out into the world and life is speeding up again. And we don't always slow down to check ourselves out and make sure that we're okay,
Yeah.
that our resilience is in place and then we can tolerate whatever life is throwing at us or coming at us because we're moving so quickly.
In your resilience work, what we're talking about safety and stuff. Um, what kind of things would you maybe, I mean, I'm thinking about like tenacity, communication, like what would be kind of a thing you'd start partnering with them on, because they may not, if they don't know there's anything wrong, they're not going to ask you to be a coach of theirs, but you're just like, hey, you're one of my friends, or I just met you, but I'm hanging out with you, so let's talk about like positive stuff.
Right.
Through your resilience work, what would be some of the things you may want to, like a thing you'd want to partner with them on, or help them in conversation so you feel good in the atmosphere with them, and help them maybe shift into another level there?
I think so there's six components of resilience: vision, composure, reasoning, tenacity, health, and community. And I think that biggest thing that I'd want to talk to people about is their vision. Is their life going the way they want it to go? And if it's not, what's what's keeping you from moving into that realm where you feel pretty amazing most days?
Yeah.
We're all going to have icky days, but what is that vision? What do you want in your life? What do you want to see happen that's not happening? Maybe in relationships or work, or maybe it's your health or it's your emotional health. It's both. Or maybe you don't have as much community support as you'd like. You don't have a network of close friends. So looking at all of those pieces and really figuring out, okay, in these areas, you've got some great stuff going on, but is it aligning with the vision and the dreams and the hopes you have for your life? So that's probably where I'd start.
Yeah. Just breathe, I'm breathing that in. You know, it's what you're saying is some big stuff. I like it. I like how you have all the components of resilience too, because what you can do then is when you start talking about vision, that's a great conversation. So you're, let's say you're, it's you that you're starting to recognize. Oh my gosh, that's me in the room. Have you ever done that where like everybody seems positive, but you're speaking negative? Like this is like our early days before we started doing more of this work, but we can have a bad day and do something like that. And they're like, oh, here, wait, it's me that's negative. You know, you start, and it's playful in a way that sometimes it kind of tears you up because that would be the first thing maybe that we may tear ourselves up.
Mhm.
But then you know that there's tools out there. And now all of a sudden it feels like there's a journey to go on and that journey is pretty exciting. What are some of the things that you see with what's going on in these? I know things are starting to open up. I mean, we had a past couple of years of challenges going on. So, what have you been seeing like as people are starting to realize there's tools out there for them to use?
So I'm going to get a little, uh, I don't know which brain it is, left brain or right brain, where I got numbers on the brain. I always forget I'm in the
Left side,
middle.
I think.
I don't know which one it is. But as you know, I've been putting together some statistics, and I think people are really starting to realize is that COVID did a number on us, but it did a number on us because it opened our eyes to all the things that have been happening to us, and we're not feeling our best. Like there were significant increases in mental health issues last quarter of 2021 than even over the length of COVID, which I find interesting. It's like that second surge of COVID, which was Omicron, really threw people for a loop. We're like, oh, we had this hope that we were getting out of COVID, and then bam, there's Omicron again. And so it really awoke people and made them realize that, hey, maybe I'm not okay. Maybe I do need to look for some tools. And so I think people are waking up to the fact a little bit, even though I'm worried about people not being awake to their emotional health, is that they are waking up a little bit and maybe seeking help from their employers is where they start. Or seeking help from, there's a lot of apps out there like Calm, Breathe, Headspace, but there's even some apps like the Resilience app I have that tracks your well-being over a period of time. And I think people are starting to utilize this technology and these tools to help them see, oh, wow, maybe assess what's going on with them so they can actually get kind of a diagnosis so they can move forward and help themselves heal. So there are a lot of tools out there that I think people are seeking. And I think it does start a lot with employers.
What's causing you to be incarcerated? You don't have to go to prison to be incarcerated. Your mind incarcerates you. You let other people incarcerate how you're going to live your life. You are limiting yourself. If you want to do something, we find a way. If you want to smoke cigarettes, you smoke them, right? You find that money to go buy that pack of cigarettes, to drink that alcohol, to do those drugs. In my case, I like drive-through. I find the money to go get that burger. So you have to change what it is that you're after and then how you go after. And it's not going to happen overnight. I tell people all the time, you can't go and say, I've changed, and your actions don't match. And you can't say today, after you just did it yesterday, oh, I'm not going to do that anymore, because they're not going to believe you, because you don't have the reputation for following through, or you don't have, everybody's just, they're not going to believe you because you've never given them a reason to believe you. But when you change over time, a month goes by, 6 months goes by, a year goes by, now they're seeing results. Now they're seeing actual change. What does that look like? It looks like freedom. That's what it looks like. And you can't, sometimes you don't appreciate freedom if you've never lost it. And I don't mean being incarcerated or coming from Dr. Wang's situation. You can be incarcerated by your relationships. You know, I mean, look at the battered woman. Look at, and not even, not physical, even just the mental abuse that people go through. It doesn't have to be in a marriage. You have friends that do that to you. It's okay to change your circle. It's okay to change your circle. It's okay to put yourself first. In my case, though, I have to put Christ first, and then I can put my family, my husband, and myself, you know, first, before I put anything else first. So, professor of change, what does that look like? I have an ability to help people through a situation because I've been there. I can relate and I can understand. I don't do any coaching, but I encourage people to become a better version of themselves. So we started a movement. Actually, Mon and I do it together. It's called BTBY. We have a TV show that's starting in July that's going to air about becoming the best you. And we do events, we do conferences. That one is not a Christian event, but we do have one called Safe in His Arms. It is a Christian event, and it's coming up in June, and it is solely about Christ, either getting to know him, learning more about him, reconnecting with him. Whatever it is about changing your heart to follow him first, to put him as a priority, and then everything else will fall in place. I was still looking at doing 3 more years. My prosecutor listened to my attorney phone calls, which is against my rights. There's no remedy for that than to open the doors. And that's what happened. But here, that's not even the best part. The best part is, and you're going to say, how is this the best part? It happened 2 months after I got there. I could have been let out in 2 months, but I wasn't ready. I was angry. I was blaming everybody else. I was not taking responsibility for my own actions. And I was stewing. And it took me a good year before I changed my mindset on how I was thinking. And once that happened, other things started happening, and things started coming to light, and charges started getting dropped, and the wheels started moving. And then God opened those doors when I was ready. If I was ready 2 months in, I'd have got out, but I wasn't. I still wasn't listening, even though I was behind bars. So once I decided that I was going to change my life and be content, if it's behind bars, then that's what it was. And I was actually content. I got the phone call, your attorney's here. Let's go. I go in and she says, we're going to court next week. He's going to have to let you out. That quick. So I can't go back on that. I cannot go back on that promise that I made to God or my family or myself. And that's what this movement is about. It is about change. It's possible, and you can do it. So I'll open it up for some questions from anybody.
Yes, Brenda. Every time, my second time with you, but I feel like it's a lifetime now. Because you have so much good juice, and I'm wearing my crown because I want to be a professor of change also, and I'm going to dress and do what I want to do. And what I love about this is when you're talking about like incarcerating, there's so many times that we walk around like robots, and like, what's the rules? What am I supposed to be doing? And what you're talking about is like what you said, freedom. I have one question for you, and then come on, the stars of the show, if you want to add anything, and Adam, with what Brenda's talking about, we have a few minutes here. What, I know that you said that you don't coach, but I do want to make sure I know how to get to you. Not just when you're out doing your events, because you have an event coming up and you have all these things going on. But I want to know about that, but also you're getting ready for a show like what you said. There's some show that's going to be syndicated, it sounds like, that you're going to be doing. Can you give a little bit of experience on what that is?
Well, there's actually different things. I'm speaking on a platform. It's more about business, but it's also about your self-development and how to move forward in business. And it is an international thing. The gal that's doing it is out of London, and she's just wanting to encourage people that you can have a great life while doing the job that you want. And it fit. I'm going to be speaking on negotiating, because negotiating is a tool, it is an asset, and it is an experience. And it's not just in business. Sometimes you have to negotiate life. You have to negotiate how you're going to live your life and who you're going to live it with. Even in my marriage, I have to negotiate. And Dennis says, when I tell him that, what do you mean we're negotiating? Well, negotiating is a conversation. It is a conversation. You need to have those conversations. And if you're not getting something that you want that is also going to benefit the other person, then walk away. It's okay to walk away. So the other thing that the reason why I'm getting on people's shows and doing some of the things that I'm doing and actually able to speak about it is because I not only changed myself, I did one of the hardest things to do. I went back to everybody and tried to make it right with those that I wronged. And I didn't want to be on the stage. I didn't want to be a hypocrite. I didn't want to give other people advice if I wasn't willing to do it myself. Some of my family members said, you don't need to do that. They harmed you. It didn't matter. Forgiveness is for you. And I had to go to them, even though they didn't ask for forgiveness. And even though they didn't maybe realize that they had done something to me, I still had to go to them and make my part of the situation right. Some people would never see me, wouldn't answer my calls or my emails or my texts, and that's okay. That door is always open. Some relationships picked right back up where they left off, and some are just okay, and that's okay. You need to accept it. And I just said, I'm going to let God control who accepts me for who I am, who he puts back in my life, and who he brings new to my life, because those are new opportunities. Those are new people, and they're placed there for a reason. So I did it. And for those, I even went to people who maybe I didn't harm, but maybe that I thought that I harmed, because I wanted to clear that air. And if I did miss you or you didn't respond, that door is open. Please contact me. I would love to have a one-on-one with you. I hope that I can be forgiven, and I hope that we can always move past it. And that's really what I want. And I had to do that for my own peace of mind, because it was taking up space in my head. It was literally there, day in and day out. I was waking up to it. And that's when you know you need to change.
And my journey started in 2004. The struggle to actually become a mom who has a child who had cancer. She was born healthy, completely healthy, in 1999. So she was 5 years old when we started our journey with cancer. Prior to that, I didn't realize how significant it was to look at life and embrace how important it is. Look and take every moment, sit down and actually be inspired by a child, how they actually viewed the world, what they actually looked at, how they got down and looked at even the tiniest little bug crawling on the ground just to see how it worked, what it did, how it did it, So my life changed significantly when she was diagnosed. I paid attention. I was there with her from the moment that she was born. I was still in the military. I was dealing with going to work and having to leave her behind, having to watch somebody else raise her, which was not something that was easy. And then 6 months in, after I had her, I was told if I wanted to re-up in the military that I needed to send her to family. That moment, I was like, I can't do this. I have to be with her. I have to be around her. I have to watch her grow up. And I'm glad I did. I got out and I started doing different types of events and that kind of stuff. So that was how I started out in marketing, communication, that kind of stuff. I had a degree that I had before I got into the military that Didn't necessarily go anywhere while I was in the military. But after I got out, it became something that the passion just grew. So seeing that and watching that, from the moment that she was little bitty, I would sit down and I would do arts and crafts projects with her, which I'm glad I did now because it's all I really have left of her. So those moments, sitting down, taking that time, enjoying moments with her, sharing little bitty things, anything from she decided to walk across the concrete with paint all over her feet, and I wound up with painted feet prints on the concrete for weeks, you know. But as soon as she started getting older, it was kind of one of those things, okay, well, how do I engage with her? How do I make her realize how much fun and inspiration she can actually go and create in others? Come to find out that the child was so much more inspiring than I could have ever been. So then 2004 came around. She was diagnosed with cancer. We went in and out of the hospital quite frequently. She spent her 5th birthday actually in the hospital in the emergency room, and we still didn't know what was going on with her. There was no diagnosis. There was no nothing. We were trying to figure out why she was having so many medical issues with regards to her tummy hurting, her back hurting. You know, she was peeing blood, so they were thinking that she had a urinary tract infection. So that struggle started then, trying to figure out exactly what was going on, how things went, you know, who we needed to talk to, how many different people we needed to talk to within the hospital, not realizing how much of a huge problem it was for children because there was not a direction. There was not anybody there to show them what was going on, what the procedures were, that kind of stuff. So that became a passion after we found out her diagnosis. So when in 2004, on February 21st, 2004, my little girl, there goes my mother. It's totally good timing, right? So on February 21st, 2004, we actually got a diagnosis. She was diagnosed with bilateral Wilms tumor with a tumor thrombus in her heart. So what that means in layman's terms is that she had cancer of both of her kidneys, and that cancer actually traveled from her kidneys up through her inferior vena cava into her heart. So every time you heard her heartbeat, it was a double thud. So instead of it being a normal heartbeat where you'd actually hear the normal steady rhythm, it would sound like her heart was beating twice as fast. And I always said that that was her special trait. And then when they removed it, she sat there and she said, my special trait is gone. And I told her, I said, your special trait is never gone because you are your special trait. So after she was diagnosed, we got involved with everything that was going on within the hospital. She wandered up and down the hallways wearing her little clippy clop shoes, pretty princess dresses, crowns. She dressed up to go everywhere. She never went into surgery in anything less than a little ball gown. We actually had a few nursing staff that actually made sure that she had her clippy clop shoes that she could actually wear when she got out of surgery. They also dressed up her babies. But through her time and struggles with regards to cancer, trying to make it so that she could still be a kid. Because unfortunately, when you are a child who is diagnosed with cancer, you have to grow up very quickly. You don't have that element of fun. You don't have that element of, I want to go and I want to be me, you know? So she always asked, okay, Mom, well, if I do this, do I get to go play? When do I get to go play? How quickly do I get to go play? So I started looking at things. It's something that I do all the time. People ask why, but I look at life through her eyes, and I still do. I look at how she would actually go and embrace a moment. She may be laying in a hospital room, in a bed, not being able to move, not being able to go and do anything. And I would see what kind of fun we could actually go and create. There was more times than not that her hospital bed was a princess carriage, and she was wearing her crown, and she was getting to go and be the princess. You know, we'd make up stories and we'd sit there and tell stories. We'd sit there and color. She could win against anyone playing Jen. It was her thing. You know, so because of that, you know, because of all the things that she did and all the things that she inspired in other people, because anybody who came around her, any person who interacted with her, that baby would sit there and she would inspire them to go and step outside of their comfort zone. They would go and find that happiness, that joy, that childlike quality that most adults lose. You know, so now as her mom, it's still something that I go and I take and I become. I make sure that when I start something or do something, I take that childlike quality and infuse it back into what I do. So with regards to marketing, communications, all that kind of stuff that we had all talked about before, it was part of my bio, that I take all those things and I actually make them a part of what I do. So I infuse anything and everything that I have and who I am into someone else's marketing.
Let's just take a moment. So everyone, just uncross everything, and we're going to take 3 deep breaths. And the first breath, we're going to deeply breathe in through our lungs into our belly. And this is everything that happened before this present moment. That what happened this morning, you're getting wherever you're going, you're looking here at this Zoom, wherever you are. So let's just take it in. Ready? In through your nose and then release through that mouth of ours. The second breath we're going to take is everything that's going to happen after this event, after your experience here. So let's bring it in. Through your nose, in deep through your lungs, fill your belly and release. And then this third breath is going to bring us right into the present moment, the here and now. And we're going to ask that wherever we are in the moment, we are going to hear the exact words that are going to speak to us, that are going to really penetrate our hearts. Let's bring it in. Deep through our nose, in through our lungs, deep belly. Release. Wow. The breath is so powerful. So thank you for participating and experiencing that. So my name is Heidi Wild, and I am wild about a lot of things. So I'm wild to talk about my experience and my journey so that perhaps it can help others, because I believe that our story, when we share it, we can have huge impact on people. And sometimes, many times, most times, we may not even know the impact we're having. People could be just going through their stuff. I will say that you never know what is going on behind someone's smile. So I want to share a little bit. This was me. I don't know if you can see that. So there was, I really related to what Brenda talked about earlier, about living a life outside of myself, getting that approval, doing the right thing, being the right, mom and daughter and neighbor and sister and employee, and just spinning on that hamster wheel and not taking time to even know who I am. And what Brenda also talked about is who rules your kingdom. How we can be incarcerated within ourselves, imprisoned, and not even know it, not even be aware of it. So a little bit about me. I am in my early 60s, which is, again, that time thing, right? And Maud, you brought in such beautiful reminders about the preciousness of the moment in time and, living through that child of ours, whether it's our own children or within ourselves. So I grew up in a home where I was a caretaker. My mom had polio before I was born. She was in a wheelchair, and she was one of my many significant role models. When I was born, I didn't know that it wasn't normal to have a mom that couldn't walk. And my mom showed me, I had really amazing parents. My dad supported my mom, took her all over the world. She was in a wheelchair, but she did not let that stop her. She was a teacher in the 50s when she got the virus, that polio. And during the time I was growing up, I watched her drive with hand controls. She spoke 6 languages fluently. She was the head of Mensa, which is a group with high IQ. She showed me, well, she was a guitar teacher too. She learned guitar music after she had polio, and she taught guitar lessons to all the neighborhood kids after school that would come to our house. And I even had a guitar, which I didn't ask for, but in 2nd grade, I got a guitar and I took lessons, and I paid $0.25 for my lessons so that she could show me the value of her time. And I watched her live. She had a lot of friends. This was in the 60s and 70s. She had Black friends and gay friends. We had hootenannies at my house. She read tarot cards. A lot of exposure to things. And one thing she taught me a lot. But I remember her teaching me that 2 things: to be different, to differentiate myself, which I did not want to do. I wanted to blend in. The last thing I wanted to do was be seen. So I had the long hair parted in the middle, down on my back, with my bell bottoms. I looked like everybody else. And she shared with me that if I don't get to know other people because of their differences, the way they look, the way they act, color of their skin, perhaps, their religion, whatever, then I might be the one missing out. I would probably be missing out on my best friends if I judge people by the way that they look or have these expectations. So when we step in to what we can really do, when we look outside of ourselves, then we can step into our capacity, which I really was learning throughout my life. So I got married in my mid-20s. I have 2 beautiful children now in their 30s. And my daughter is having a baby. I'm going to be a grandma, which is a whole shift of, just the wonders of life. And I ended up working for a couple jobs, and then I landed in a company that I stayed for 33 years. And it was Cellular One Boston, Singular, and AT&T. And throughout my career there, I had a stellar career, tremendous. I always saw, I was a visionary. So when I started as a temp, because I didn't want to be home, not, home with my baby. So one day a week I went in, this was when they had temp jobs back then. And I saw an opportunity because I was doing a lot of work with Cellular One, making appointments for installations and whatnot. I said, if you put a phone in my house and pay me, you don't have to pay me unless I sell something, but I'll do telemarketing. And they did. And I ended up making quite a living for 5 years, working at home while my kids were 5 and 3, is when I finally went in to be a full-time. And during that time, I kind of juggled being a mom and working at home and getting this career going. And then throughout my career, I had tremendous opportunities, sales rep, sales manager. I was the first telemarketing department, and managing a team. And if you're a parent, managing people are very similar to that. It's one of the hardest jobs in my entire life because I really put my heart and soul into it, developing people, developing myself, listening. A good manager, there's a lot of qualities of leadership. So, but that was my identity. I couldn't say my name without saying my company. Hi, I'm Heidi Wild. I work for AT&T. So that was also a mask that I was hiding behind, because at that point still, I didn't know who I was. So during my career, I had a lot of things going on where I was looking outside of myself. I wasn't feeling my feelings. I didn't ever learn how to feel my feelings. So I was on that hamster wheel. I was busy tasking to not feel. So I took my career to levels that were crazy. I'd be on my computer at 11 at night, with spreadsheets and avoiding things. And that affected my relationships, my marriage. I also ate to not feel. After my work slowed down, and I ended up getting a divorce, hardest thing I ever did, because I wasn't healthy. And, when there's someone in the relationship that's not in a healthy place, then the relationship's not going to be healthy. So we talked earlier about letting people learn, teaching people how to treat us. We do that. We create our own relationships. Boundaries, I heard that earlier.
Years ago, yes, this crown, I'll give you a little background. This was my Miss Illinois crown. And I don't know I don't think that these can be purchased. You either get one for winning a title or you don't. But here's an interesting thing. See how this has, and look at it's terrible. I've got gemstones missing from it. But this under layer, it's got this first layer. So I have another one of these from my county level or my city level. And that was called, it was for Miss Fox River Valley. And it doesn't have this extra layer. And then Miss America's looks exactly like this, except that hers has another layer of this underneath. So that's, if you ever happen to see somebody who has a crown that looks like this, you can tell if it's a city, state, or national level based on how many layers. Fun fact, right? And my kids have played with it, and it's been sitting in boxes, and it's moved way too many times. And so there's gemstones missing, sadly. But, that's what happens in life. In some ways, I kind of like that, because when I look back at this time, I won this on my 19th birthday. And I went into the pageant as a first runner-up. I had not won at the local level. And it was truly an Esther story. My heart is really, I love the story of Esther from the Bible. And the reason I love it is I think because I kind of encountered that and have walked that during my life. One of the contestants who won at the local level, I was first runner-up to her. Without revealing too much, she couldn't go to the state pageant for some physical reasons. We'll just leave it at that. Imagine the movies. And so 29 days before the pageant, they asked if I would like to go in her place because I was first runner-up. And I said, yeah, I definitely want to go. And so I had about 20 days to prepare. And, so many of us have talked about, being healthy and wellness and our body and our physique. And as women, we are bombarded by what we look like on the outside. Everywhere we look, that is the focus, right? And that's detrimental, in my opinion, to women. It's detrimental to our psyche. It's detrimental to our physical health, our mental health, our spiritual health. At any rate, I had 20 days to get ready. So you want to talk about crazy crash dieting and horrible eating. I lost way too much weight in a very short time. I've lived through the consequences of that for the rest of my life, sadly. And now I've learned I am a very clean eater and embracing, where I'm at. But that was how I got to go to the pageant. And then I showed up that week and ended up winning the talent portion. And it was a very spiritual experience for me. I had I am a believer in Jesus Christ, and I believe in the prophetic. I believe God still speaks to us today. And at the time, I actually had been at a few events and had some people pray for me and said, there's a Queen Esther story coming to pass. Now, this was before I knew I was going to the pageant. And so when I then got that call, I was like, oh, this is going to be interesting. Like, I wonder if I'm going to win. And then when I won the talent part, I just knew in my spirit I was going to win. And so then the next night I won. So that was my experience at a very young age. And then I went from there, and life took a huge quick turn. I ended up getting married a year later and started having babies. I'm a trained singer and actress, and that was what I thought I would do for my career. That was my hope. That was my dream. And once I got married and started having babies, that dream got further and further away, and it got smaller and smaller. And life happened. Real life happened. I was in a very bad marriage. There was infidelity. My children, there was a lot of stuff that happened with my children. I tell people I'm a 3-time divorced woman. So I fully understand the pain and rejection that comes when a spouse is unfaithful. It's very, again, talk about an impact on a woman's soul and mind and being. It's detrimental. And so I started a journey that I was on for about 22 years that basically is similar. There's so many pieces of what everybody talked about, how we lose ourselves or we don't know who we are. And that was the journey I was on. So here at 19, I won this amazing title and, traveled the country, and I was on TV shows and I was speaking to, 2.5 years, 3 years later, just being absolutely broken, absolutely a broken individual, because I was trying to raise my children. I was going through a divorce. I was sick. I didn't know why I was sick, and nobody knew why I was sick. And I just was becoming more distraught and more broken. And this little verse had come to me. Someone had said, God will turn the ashes of your life into something beautiful. It's in Isaiah 61:3, and it says that he will crown you with beauty instead of ashes. And I was like, that's nice. I mean, literally, I was like, yeah, that's great. Good. Thanks for telling me. Yeah, I don't really want to hear it. I mean, I'm an honest person. I say it as it is. And that was what I thought. And my prayers would be, God, where are you? God, please help me. God, come and fix this. God, come rescue me. It was these desperate prayers. And I know God heard them, but that wasn't what he was looking for. And so that process, continued on. I went through, unfortunately, 2 more bad marriages. And at the end of the 3rd marriage, which was about 2.5, 3 years ago, I love counseling. I'm a big supporter. You get a good counselor, somebody who can help you walk through your areas of life. Because here's the thing, we all carry trauma. I love my parents. I have a fantastic family, and I've grown up in a fantastic family, but my parents are human. And so they've done things that of course have caused harm or trauma to me. I've done it to my kids. We live in a fallen world. And so that's always going to be there. And so when I started to really get to the end of this last marriage, I was heartbroken. All I ever wanted when I was young, other than to be an actress and a singer, was to be married. Like, I would pray for my husband I have journals from when I was 10 years old. You talk about like your journals, I journaled my entire life. I love journaling. And I used to pray for my husband. And I'm like, how is it that I can have prayed my entire life for a husband and had all these horrible marriages? Like, what am I missing? And I got to a point where I realized, okay, the only common denominator is me.
And my journey went for 10 years of trying to figure out who I was. So my very first thing I did was I moved in. My very first roommates out of high school, who I didn't know, I just met them on the streets, turned out to be a Black male probation officer, a white gay cab driver, And Kathy, my roommate, got a job as a Playboy bunny at the Playboy Mansion in Chicago. So she got me an interview to interview with the bunny mother, and the bunny mother hired me to be a Playboy bunny. But when she gave me the costume to take home and told me I had to come back with fingernails and fake eyelashes and stiletto heels, I went back the next day and returned it and said, that's just way too feminine for me. I could handle wearing the bunny costume, but the femininity of makeup and all that was way too much for me. So I turned down the job. But again, we had an amazing, I mean, that 1 year living with those people, those roommates, we partied at the mansion with all of, the bunnies and Hugh Hefner. But my favorite band of the 70s was Emerson, Lake and Palmer. And so we went to that concert and it was sold out. And Kathy got us backstage by flashing her Playboy ID. And I was smart. At 18 years old, I had this knowledge. Well, if we're backstage, I'm going to monetize this. And I'm going to make sure I meet all the concert promoters. And Tanya's laughing because I'm a major networker. I network for everyone. So I learned this, Tanya, at 18, of how to network backstage. So before the concert was over, I knew all the concert promoters, the record label people, the lighting, sound guys, the roadies. And so before the concert was over, I started to date the roadie from Emerson, Lake and Palmer, who also worked for James Gang in Black Oak, Arkansas, who wanted me to get married to him and move to Arkansas. And so I traveled around, and I wasn't a groupie because Kenny was my boyfriend. But I knew everyone. And so at 18 years old, at 19, I broke up with Kenny and I hitchhiked to Phoenix, Arizona, where I met a girl named Michelle, and her and I hitchhiked to Oregon. And I lived in Phoenix for about 8 months, then Oregon, and then we ended up in San Diego. And when I got to San Diego, I was at a bar and I met this really cute guy who was a surfer, but he was also a cocaine dealer. And so within a few months, I started snorting cocaine. And it just started to just be gradual. And I was bartending. And the next thing I know, I met another man who owned a place in San Diego called The Body Shop. And he had said to me, Jill, it's not what you think, because I thought every stripper were prostitutes and disgusting. So he said, let me just show you. So he brought me there. It turned out the women that worked there, one was Miss Nude World, were like tens, beautiful women. Lots of them had college degrees and they just wanted to earn extra money. And this club wouldn't let any of the the clients, the guests, touch the women, and they had bouncers to protect us. So what I loved is I went up on stage and realized in one set, 3 songs, I can make $100 in the 70s off of one set. And so I started to do this. Well, what people don't understand about dancers is most of us, I think 99.9, have been sexually abused. And it's the dancing on stage that gave me power to have men not touch me, but I could entice them and have control over them. And so it was a way for me to get back at abusers. And I didn't realize that. And so now I had a whole new concept of why women become prostitutes or dancers, and even men, because of sexual abuse issues. And I never understood that. Well, what I came to find out is it takes your soul. You're exhausted both emotionally, physically, and sexually and spiritually. And so I did this for a period of time, which led me to more and more and more cocaine. So before I knew it, within 4 years, I was down to 97 pounds. I couldn't remember how to get home. My mind was totally gone. I literally lived on 1 bowl of cereal per day for 4 years. There's no way in the world, if it wasn't for the grace of God, that I should be alive today. And so one day, Michelle was also, my roommate, was also a coke dealer. And one day she said, hey, I heard about this church and the pastor is a recovered heroin addict. Let's go. So what do we do before going to church? What we normally do is snort some cocaine and go to church. So we got high and I went to church and he was doing an altar call saying that someone in the last row was supposed to come forward and my legs kept jumping and I thought it was the cocaine. But by the third time he said this, I ran forward and I surrendered my life to God. And it scared me so much because I didn't understand it. So when I went home, I prayed every night, God, please help me get off of these drugs. And I never went back to that church. But about 5 months later, Michelle and I had a horrible fight because our dealer was coming over and I had people over and I went and let him leave. And so Michelle and I had a big fight and the Holy Spirit said, get in your car and move back to Chicago from San Diego. So I did. And I was bartending at a bar in Schaumburg, Illinois. And this person at the bar talked about this new church down the street that had just opened up. And so I thought, well, let's start going there. So I started going to this church, Willow Creek, and this was in 1981. And they had just opened up. And I got really involved with the singles ministry and started going and getting involved with Bible studies. My life was starting to get normal and I had less and less desire to use drugs.
So as I'm summarizing, I love you ladies and thank you so much for giving your heart. I respect and appreciate you so much. I've learned so much and I feel every day I do, but today it was a big bump. It was like I feel like I'm up above the clouds, but I feel grounded too with all that love. So what I was saying though is when I started learning to love on women, it was like just awakening because I started opening my heart. And then I realized, all right, I love myself. And this is where I was finishing, is that I love you. And I used to never say that. And I even have a picture of me and my dad where I used to think my dad was like everything to me. And there was a picture where I was leaning back. And that's what I used to do with everyone. I always had this thing where I'd push back and I go, why do I do that? So look at your body movement. Look at how you feel. Find the freedom because all is oneness. We're talking about health. We're talking about business. We're talking about relationships. We're talking about everything. Love you. Have a wonderful day, everyone. Thank you so much.